The rain in Seattle didn't just fall. It hammered against the glass-walled mansion on the cliffside like it was trying to break in. Inside, Julian and Elena Vance were celebrating 10 years of what the local papers called the golden marriage. Julian was a high-profile defense attorney, the kind of man who could make a jury believe the devil was a saint. Elena was a restorer of Renaissance art, a woman who spent her days meticulously fixing things that were broken. But as she watched Julian pour 2 glasses of vintage wine, Elena realized that some things were beyond repair. She smiled as he toasted to their future, but her eyes remained cold. She knew Julian was lying not about the wine, but about where he had been 3 hours ago. She had seen his silver Aston Martin parked outside a dilapidated warehouse in the docks, a location owned by a man Julian was currently defending in a high-stakes embezzlement case. The next morning, the city woke up to the news that a key whistleblower named Marcus Thorne had been found executed. Julian read the news on his tablet over breakfast, his expression as smooth as glass. He muttered a brief word of pity, noting that the prosecution's case had just collapsed. But Elena noticed the smudge of red clay on his shoes, clay found only near the docks where the body was discovered. When Julian left for the office, Elena did something she had never done in a decade. She broke into his private study. Behind a portrait of Lady Macbeth, she found a floor safe. Using their anniversary date as the code, she opened it to find not money, but a burner phone and a set of keys to a storage unit on the outskirts of town. When Elena arrived at the storage facility, she didn't find a hitman's kit. Instead, she found a hidden gallery of masterpieces reported stolen from the National Museum years prior. As she stood among the stolen canvases, Julian's shadow fell across the doorway. He wasn't surprised to see her. He was disappointed. He confessed that Thorne hadn't just known about embezzlement. He had seen Julian at the museum during the heist. He told her he did what was necessary to protect their life. But instead of recoiling in horror, Elena looked at the stolen Caravaggio and told him he had done it wrong. She pointed out that the restoration work on the corner was amateur and would be traced by black market syndicates within a week. She would use her expertise to make the art untraceable if he gave her half the proceeds and a ticket out of the country. For the next month, the Vances became the ultimate crime duo. Julian used his legal connections to move the paintings, while Elena spent her nights in their basement aging the canvases with chemicals and precision. They planned their final escape for the night of the Winter Gala, intending to fly private to Switzerland under diplomatic cover. As they sat on the tarmac, the engines of the Gulfstream humming, Julian squeezed her hand and told her they were finally safe. But as the plane began to taxi, the runway was suddenly flooded with the strobing blue and red lights of federal agents. Julian panicked, assuming a contact had sold them out, and began frantically planning a legal defense for them both. But Elena remained eerily calm, checking her watch as the cabin door was kicked open. The FBI swarmed in, but they didn't point their weapons at Elena. They pinned Julian to the floor. Lead agent stepped forward and thanked Elena for her cooperation. As Julian looked up in betrayal, Elena leaned down and whispered a truth he had never suspected. She hadn't married him for his status or his money. She had married him because she knew he was responsible for the unsolved disappearance of her brother, a junior associate at his firm 5 years ago. She had spent a decade playing the role of the devoted wife, waiting for him to commit a crime so massive that his legal brilliance couldn't save him. She revealed that the paintings in the crates were fakes she had created, while the originals had already been returned to the museum via an anonymous tip. She had planted her brother's watch, a trophy Julian had kept in the storage unit for the FBI to find. As Julian was led away in handcuffs, Elena stood on the stairs of the plane, silhouetted against the storm. She wasn't a victim or a grieving widow. She was the artist who had finally finished her greatest restoration, fixing a decade of injustice by becoming the most dangerous person Julian had ever met.